Hey, when I was a kid, I used to be really into imagination games, like stupidly into. I used to have this neighbor who used to live next door to me, as opposed to a neighbor who didn't live next door to me, and we used to play a lot of these games as kids, like where the entire premise was set in your head. Like there was no goal, there was no aim, there was no winning or losing. It was just we came up with these worlds and then we just play them out. And it was normally a lot of fun. I'd normally sort of take the reins of these games. So, for instance, I would come up with the idea and like the story and the premise, and then me and her would play along with it. And it would generally just be straight rip-offs of of stuff from pop culture. I think one of my personal favorites was Lime. Lime was the most common one we did, and that was in that one I was a time traveler. See if you can guess what I ripped off of. I was a time traveler, an eccentric time traveler who had a magic stick, and I would bap the stick, and that's how we'd go back and forward in time. It was basically just it was a net, because I used to live next to a river. It was a net, and we'd ripped the net off of the net, so we just had a bamboo pole. But I'd slam it into the ground, and that's how we'd teleport through space and time. And she was my assistant. Are you catching on yet? as to what this was? But yeah, so we played this game called Lime, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it. I remember I had enemies, and they were all just what my idea of what the neon colors were. I had an idea of what the neon colors were, and they were cherry, aqua, lemon, and lime. I thought those were like the one and only neon colors. And I was lime because I liked the color lime. And they were my enemies. Cherry, aqua, lemon, whatever. We would fight. We would fight them through space and time, and it was a lot of fun. But looking back on it, I guess that was roleplay. Roleplay is so intrinsic in just my development as a human being. It's the reason I'm here right now talking to you on this rambly screen. And yeah, roleplay is just super, super important. And I think it's not just me. I think it's important in a lot of people's development. You know, I don't think I'm the only one who enjoyed basically improv. When I was in school, I mean, you always hear of people when they're in school, they play like house and things. You know, house is the common one. But when I was in school, we did doctors. I don't know if that was just me. But there was this corner of the field right at the back where we'd play doctors. And for some reason, our hospital was also a veterinary place. So we'd have people coming in with their animals as well as with their tumours. So what we would do is sit up on the hill, and one of us would be the doctor. And then we'd have to and people would come in, the people being other people who were playing the game. And most of the people who played with us wanted to be special in some way. You know, everyone wants to be special in roleplay. You know, they want to be, I want to be the Mary Sue. I want to be, in this case, it was I want to be the person who, you know, who's dying and gets to have all the trauma of the session. You know, and I was almost like the leader of this group, I guess would be the way of saying it. When I was playing it, everyone kind of appreciated the fact that I sort of made up the rules and annoyingly who could play. That's the big one for me, at least. When I was in school, I had to make a thing called the Fair Club. I was in a club, which wasn't a real club. It was just a group of us in the field behind my school, called the Fair Club. And now the Fair Club was spawned out of the fact that my other group of friends didn't let us play because we were a bit weird. So they wouldn't let us play with them. So we went off and started the Fair Club. And the Fair Club's whole ethos was that anyone could play. But in reality, it was anyone we liked could play. So it was just like another version of their club. It was another unfair club we created, essentially. We just created another unfair club for us to play doctors in. And as I got older, this club actually went away from roleplay. Don't worry, I'll come back to roleplay in a minute. I just want to talk about the Fair Club because it's interesting. So it moved away from roleplay, and we went into this realm of this sport I created, which I tried it recently with some friends, and it's really good. And I encourage you, if you have two friends, Big ask already. If you have 2 friends who are down for it, go and try this because it's really, really fun. I call it foosball at the time. There's probably a better name I can come up with now. But it's called foosball, and all you need to play is some kind of goalpost, which you can just make with 2 coats, either in a spaced about 6 feet across, or an actual goalpost in a field, and you just need a big field, big space, and a ball. And 3 people. That's all you need to play this little sport I created, and it took my school by storm. They loved it. They played it every break time. It became so much that the teachers would come out and ask what everyone was doing, and it was this sport I'd created called foosball. And the interest, so I'll teach you how to play foosball very quickly, right? So imagine you got to imagine a pitch, right, and 3 active players, right? You get one of them is the goalkeeper, one of them is the shortstop, and one of them is the long stop. I know long stop isn't actually a thing in baseball, but shortstop is. So anyway, so the goalkeeper's job is to keep the goal. The goalkeeper is not allowed outside of the box that they, around the goal, and they're allowed to pick up the ball and whatever. They just got to save it, right? The shortstops. I've told this so badly to you. The game starts by the goalkeeper takes the ball and boots it as far as they can without leaving their half of the pitch. So if you haven't seen a football pitch, it's divided into halves. It's the same as a basketball court. It's divided into halves. The goalkeeper has to kick it as far as they can without kicking it outside of their half. The long stop then has to run over to it and kick it as close as they can to the box so that the shortstop can take the shot into the goal. Right? That's it. That's the entire game. If the long stop kicks it too far towards the goalkeeper just catches it, the goalkeeper wins a point. If the long stop kicks it not far enough, the shortstop has a really, really distant shot to shoot from. It's quite a good game because it's got 3 roles and all 3 of them have different skills and different abilities. You can get, for instance, when we used to play, my friend used to bring her little sister out, and we used to make her be the long stop because the long stop's the easiest job and it just requires the most running. So we used to make her be the long stop, and then we'd swap between goalkeeper and shortstop. I've spoken about that for too long, haven't I? I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Let's move on. Roleplay. It's sort of something that I think a lot of people have enjoyed in some way or another. Even if you're not too into it, you've probably enjoyed it in some way or another. I guess sketch comedy is a big one. Almost all sketch comedy spawned from just improv roleplay with people, with a group of friends. And I'm sure most people have watched improv comedy in some way. But I think the big place where most people discover they enjoy roleplay is video games. And I was not one of them, but I did do my fair share of roleplay. A lot of roleplay. And I think most people's roleplay experience starts with RuneScape, which is where... Mine didn't, actually. I'm thinking about it. My first start of roleplay is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I must explain. My parents didn't let me have Call of Duty. I begged and I begged because I played it at friends' houses and I absolutely loved it to no end, but my parents wouldn't let me have it. So what I said to them was I wanted to play Call of Duty with my little brother and little sister on the condition that we didn't shoot each other. We just wanted to run around the maps. And my parents said yes. That was a complete lie, by the way, when I said that. I told them we wouldn't be shooting each other as a lie. I wanted to shoot everyone. But obviously then my parents kept checking on me when I was playing Call of Duty. So me and my siblings had to pretend we were just running around the map. And eventually, we got so into pretending to run around the map, we started making characters. So there's a map in Call of Duty called Crash, right? And Crash is probably the least, for its name, it's the least blown up map on Call of Duty, right? It's the most intact. So we gave each other houses and jobs. Like I worked at the shop in the middle of the map, and we would go out to the shop and we would pretend. Meanwhile, we're carrying fucking guns in like our characters on the split screen. We're all carrying guns, but we just pretend they were like, bananas or something. And we just walk around and we'd be like, oh, time to go home. We'd like bump into each other on the street and be like, oh, how are you? Mental. I thought I was like, oh, I'm a genius. I'll tell my parents that I'm actually not going to shoot my siblings. But in reality, we ended up just not doing it anyway, and we roleplayed forever. And then we did the same thing with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 as well. It was Favela was the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 map we used, funnily enough, even though there's way better ones for that. But anyway, RuneScape. RuneScape is where a lot of people start role-playing, and I did my fair share of role-playing on RuneScape. My name was Coco Polo. Don't know why. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if I was Wilbur Coco? Because if I never changed my name to Soot. But I was called Coco Polo on RuneScape. And I had no idea what I was doing when I was role-playing, but I was. I just thought I was playing the game as it was intended, you know, walking around talking to people, you know, and I'd sometimes go into houses and I wouldn't be able to tell who was an NPC and who was a player because everyone would act. This was in 2007, 2006. Everyone would act like the video game, right? So, act like the video game? Act like an NPC. They'd roleplay. So you'd be walking through the town and you'd see people like in fucking like just regular clothes being like, "Yay, Mary, how are you today?" And he's like talking all medieval, like, even in RuneScape. And I'd think, "God, this game's great." And I had a girlfriend forced upon me in RuneScape, quite funny. I always tell this story, how I had a RuneScape girlfriend, but I didn't ask for one. I was trying to do one of the quests where you have to, I didn't have the paid for version, I only had the free version. And I was trying to do one of the quests where you have to like go into this, I think it was Romeo and Juliet, where you go into this house just outside of Varrock. And there was just this girl in there, and she went, "Hi," and I thought she was the quest. So I start like typing to her like, "Hello." I'm just like, "How are you?" And she's like, "I'm good." And I'm thinking, right, Romeo and Juliet, this is a romance quest, isn't it? And she's like, "Do you want to be my boyfriend?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck, this quest's taking a weird turn." So I go, "Yeah, sure." And so she just starts like saying, "Great, let's go walk together, babe." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, okay, wow, this is taking a turn." So I'm like walking and I'm thinking, when do I finish the quest? So I'm like walking through Varrock with my new girlfriend that I've had thrust upon me. And she's basically just being like, "Let's go get a pint of beer." And I'm like, "I'm only 11. I can't drink beer." But I don't tell her that, obviously. Everyone's an adult when they're on the internet. But I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, let's go get some beer." And yeah, I was born in 1991, I promise. And I was walking around with this girl, and I was like, and eventually I said to her, I said to this, because I thought it was an NPC. I was like, I sort of started walking away because I thought it's just the computer. The computer's not going to care. So I just walk away thinking this quest sucks. And then she goes, "What? Come back. Where are you going?" And I turn around and I sort of just say to the NPC like, "Oh, I'll be back." Because I'm thinking, right, I want the NPC to wait there. I want the NPC, by the way, if you don't know, is a non-playable character in a game. It's like a computer character, right? But I thought this was a computer character, but it was a real person. So I say, "I'll be right back," because I'm thinking, right, I want the character to wait there, but I don't want to actually talk to them. So I walk away and start trying to do another. I think I go and mine some copper, and then I get a whisper, which is like a direct message in the game that says like, "Hey babe, where are you? I want to come see you again." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, this quest's hard." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm just mining." And she's like, "Oh, okay, I'll wait back at the house." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I keep mining. She's like, and then she whispers to me again like, "Babe, when are you coming home?" And I'm like, I'm just smelting now. I'm at Lumberidge." And she's just like, "Come back to the house." So I'm like, "Oh fuck it." So I do, thinking, right, this must be the end of the quest. I get back to the house and she's there like, "Come on, let's get into bed with me." And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I just say, what, how do I finish? So I say, thinking, right, I say I said the word help. I remember, because I was thinking it was a computer and help is what you type when you want to know what's going on, you know? So I just say to her, "Help." And she says, "What's wrong?" And I say, "How to finish Romeo and Juliet quest." And she says, you talk to the girl outside." And so I go out and I speak to the fucking Juliet character outside. And then it finishes the quest. It's like, I finished the quest. And then she's like, "Come on, babe." And that's when the penny drops for 11-year-old Will. And I go, "Oh no." It's not. Oh. She tried to have sex with me, I think. That's why she wanted me in the bed. That's what I think she was trying to do. And I was just so oblivious. I just wanted to do my quest. I just wanted my quest points. So yeah, I was that. But aside from that, I didn't do much roleplay in RuneScape at all. The big one is World of Warcraft. That's where it kicks off for me properly with roleplay. I discovered roleplay servers. I discovered roleplay add-ons, roleplay etiquette. All of my knowledge of roleplay etiquette comes from World of Warcraft. And the best thing about World of Warcraft is, unlike all the other games I've mentioned, maybe not so much RuneScape, but all the other games I've mentioned, World of Warcraft is the only one where there's not a quote-unquote leader. There's not someone who decides the roleplay. It's organic, and it comes out of the situations and what happens around you. I have no idea if WoW roleplay is as big or as good as it was back in the day. But back in the day, it was the shit, right? I played a gnome. I played a gnome engineer. I leveled up my little gnome, and I got really high engineering, and I joined a gnomish engineering military roleplay guild. Which, in case you haven't done military roleplay before, the extent of military roleplay is that some fucking geezer is the general or the sergeant, and there's ranks. Everyone gets given a rank, and you got to show up to drills, and you have to stand there while they talk at you, and you do /salute every now and then. And then you sometimes go marches. You go on marches, which is designed to make all the people on the roleplay server go, ooh, because there's a bunch of people walking in sync, you know. But I just like the idea of being in an engineer, like a gnome engineering military. And it was a lot of fun. I really got into my character. My character would wake up, he'd go off to work, he'd go off and join this and go up and do a drill, you know. And most of the drills involve throwing explosive rockets and testing out guns that we'd made and stuff because we were engineers. And then I'd do my march, and then I'd go to the inn, I'd go to the bar, and I'd chat with people at the bar, and they'd be like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm a soldier," you know. It's like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time with it. But the problem is, dear listeners, that World of Warcraft's roleplay scene is probably the most sexual that I've seen. And I've been in a lot of roleplay communities, and I would say World of Warcraft has the most sexual, aside from obvious contenders. World of Warcraft really takes the cake. And I only discovered this about age 14, 15 at Goldshire Inn. Now Goldshire is the secondary starting area, as in the part you move on to in the human starting zone in Elwyn Forest. You move out of Northshire Abbey, I think it is Northshire Abbey, and you walk down the road, or up the road technically. Oh no, it's south down the road to this little town. And when I say little, it is literally an inn and a blacksmith opposite each other, and then like a fishing hut in the distance, and like a couple carts with Remy. But anyway, Goldshire is I saw it's just a regular place, and my training grounds were in Stormwind, so, you know, I thought maybe I'll go to Goldshire Inn for a bit. I walk in, and I see naked elves dancing on the tables. I see Draenei /nuzzling each other. I see people in cat form walking around, like purring and like nuzzling bulges. And I walked in and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And everyone is wearing like the sexy armor you get in video games. They were all wearing like the sexy armor, right? And it was disproportionately women in this bar, which I'm going to say now, I would go as far as to say there was less than 2 women behind the computers out of the 50 or so people in this bar. And I remember the thing that made me log out and then be too scared to log back in was this night elf druid in cat form walked up to me and whispered me, /inspect me. She said /inspect. Now /inspect, what it does is it shows you what armor the person's wearing. I /inspected the druid, and there was just no clothes. And I pressed escape and clicked disconnect as fast as I could before my parents saw. World of Warcraft was my life. I couldn't get banned from World of Warcraft by my parents. I wouldn't be able to play with them again. I did eventually log back into that server, and I got away from Goldshire Inn, you'll be glad to know. And I enjoyed my military roleplay for a while. I actually made my step-cousin very jealous, because he really liked my gnome. He thought it was really cool, and he liked them. I got to rank of corporal, and he was so jealous he wanted to steal my character, which I thought was very sweet. But yeah, I had a really good time. World of Warcraft as well, just outside of roleplay. I had a really good time on over. I've probably sunk more hours into World of Warcraft than any other game ever. Let's move on to some weirder parts of roleplay that I did. I never did Minecraft roleplay until, well, recently, but I never did it when it was at its big because I think I was just too old. I think I was at college and I didn't really spend too much time on the internet between the ages of like 17 and 20, which ironically is probably the time in my life where I was the biggest dickhead. But like 17 to 20, I was mostly out and about doing stuff. I used the internet for social media and like chatting and stuff. I didn't really use it for games. But that was when I think Minecraft roleplay was at its highest. But I did do Starbound roleplay. I only played Starbound. Starbound is like Terraria, but in space. It's an okay game. It's fun for the first couple hours. Fun for the first 10 hours. You have a really good time. And then it's just kind of drab. I think the issue is the controls. Everything's so floaty, and it doesn't feel, the art style isn't very cohesive. Well, it is cohesive and it's really good, but it's like not. I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. It's one of those games where you play it and you think you're the problem while you're not enjoying it. Do you know what I mean? When you play a game and like you think to yourself like, oh, this game isn't very fun, but I think it's my fault. Looking back on it, I think it's Starbound's fault. I just don't think Starbound's that great. But it's fun. If you've never given it a try, I'd heartily recommend it. You know what it is, actually? Too much random generation. All of the weapons are randomly generated, right? Which sounds really cool until you're holding a blaster, which just looks identical to the other 5 and shoots out like the same bolt as one you had 3 weeks ago, but this one is green. It's like that. It's boring. I want a default. World of Warcraft, we were talking about World of Warcraft, has like thousands of unique weapons, all with their own names and stuff. And like, most of them are just like fucking does 23 damage per second plus 1 strength, and some of them are called like of the bear and of the tiger just to pad out the numbers. But like, some interesting weapons. Like even one of the default knives is called the dirk, which I think is really cool. It's just little things like that. And like worn dagger, and it really sets you up for D&D. World of Warcraft does. But Starbound, I wanted to roleplay on this server I found. I think this was during quite a lonely time. I think this was when I was working at my convenience store job. I was an adult at this point. I was actually 19. Yeah, actually thinking about it, maybe I was playing games. But like I was working at my retail job, and I decided I wanted to get into Starbound roleplay. So I started playing on this server. And I found this guy who was walking around as like a computer. And I was like, what the fuck? How's he doing this? And I like whispered to him and he went, oh, it's a mod. And I was like, what mod is it? And he goes, oh, I made it myself. And I was like, well, can I have it? And he went, yeah. And he like added me on Skype and then he sent me this fucking mod. And then he just didn't speak to me again. And I found out the mod is only like the thing you put on the game. The issue was that I needed to MySQL inject fucking animations and shit and like make it all myself. But I was invested. And this is I was talking about this with Phil recently. This is one of the few times I learned how to do computer programming and then immediately forgot it. But I used the mod, and basically what the mod was, it was a stick. And when you held it, the stick and you would turn invisible, and it would basically look into a directory, and then depending on the button presses you do, it would correlate an animation to what you did. So, for instance, if you press D to go right, it would play an animation of your character moving right. So you could basically make yourself into whatever you wanted to be, and it worked on multiplayer. So I was like, it's probably banned. I probably could have got banned on Steam for this, but I was like, I'm going to do this. So I started learning. First thing I did was I picked an animation. I wanted to be a red ferret, and there's already a ferret model in the game. So I extracted the model data, and I basically then got into a chat with someone on the Starbound modding forum about how to implement it. I think it was MySQL. It might have been Python, actually. And I started basically it took me days. I remember it took me like genuine like days of getting home from work and doing this. And eventually I managed to make it work. And I got on this server and I played as a ferret for about a day, and then I got bored. It was one of those things where it was the journey. The journey was more important than the destination, as it were. But yeah, so that was Starbound, I guess, my foray. I'm trying to think of what other places I've roleplayed on, because I'm big on my roleplay, you know. I love roleplay a lot, man. That's kind of what I wanted SMP Earth to be, I guess, but we'll get into that later. let's talk about D&D. So D&D is a tabletop game. And the best way I explain to people who've never heard of it, because everyone I speak to about D&D says that it sounds super complicated. It's not. It's really not. So basically, anything you can think of doing right now, wherever you're sit or stood or listening to this, basically you can do in D&D. And as long as you have a competent DM, you can just say to the DM, like, oh, I would like to punch the wall, please. And then the DM will not sneeze, but the DM will say, okay, roll a strength check. Or if the wall is breakable, they'll say roll to hit. And basically then what you do is you have one of the dice, the most famous dice, the D20. You roll it, and the number you get indicates how well you did the thing you want to do. And then the DM will then tell you what happens. So the DM is like the game, right? Telling you what to imagine, and you are the player, right? That's it. That's all the game is. And some things don't even require you to roll dice. You can say, oh, I want to go up and talk to the people at the bar. And then the DM will say, okay, and he's a dwarf. He's quite small. Obviously, he's got a ginger beard, and he's got a fiery set of eyes. He smells strongly of cologne. And he's wearing quite fine clothes, but they seem to not have been washed in a while. And he looks at you and he says, "Hey, interest you on a pint?" And you know that's how you play. That's how you play D&D. And I started off as a player, and obviously I don't think many people start as a DM, but I started as a player, and I enjoyed it off the bat. I loved it. I loved basically the interactions. I loved the exploring this world that my friend had made. And it was a lot of fun, but I very quickly grew tired of not being in charge of the situation. You know, I had all these ideas, and I had all these ways I thought I could have done it differently, and I kept stum. I like to think I didn't say to the DM, like, I would have done it like this, but I probably did at some point and made myself look like a wanker. But I kept having these thoughts of how I would have done things, and eventually a D&D society at my university started, and I decided, well, I better get involved in that. So I joined the D&D society and quickly rose up to being one of the top people there. I was given the job of being a DM, and I was put in the saddle, as it were, and I was basically put in charge of a lot of the stuff. And I got a table, and my table very quickly became the rowdiest and loudest table in the room. Everyone would stare at us because we were a distraction, pretty much. And I would like stand up and act out things on the table and chairs, and I got really into it. And it was a lot of fun. Everyone would like, all of the people involved, despite not taking the game seriously. I was given the table of people who didn't take the game seriously. But due to the fact I was so chaotic as well, they were just so into it. They would like DM me after university, like asking me what to do with their character and things. They'd send me their backstory. And we had a really good time. And my experience in D&D has been absolutely wonderful. If you've never done D&D and you have a group of friends that want to try it, just get one person to learn how to DM, and then you can all play it. It's so simple and so easy and so fun. And it's not for everyone, I will say. I've been in groups where there have been people there who I can tell just weren't invested in it. Because roleplay isn't for everyone at all. There was one of my friends who used to play just because he wanted to hang out with us. He actually didn't care about the game at all. He would just wanted to hang out with us, and he played a character called Latrell. Who was a dragonborn, who had a very thick, like, North American accent. He was American, he was from Hawaii, this guy, but he had a very thick sort of like, hey, I'm walking here, like north of the United States kind of New York accent. And he was a basketball playing dragonborn, and he obviously didn't take it seriously, and he would be on his phone half the time, but you could tell he just liked hanging out with us. And when he did do roleplay, he was always very funny. But the problem is with people that don't enjoy roleplay very much is they start being destructive in other people's roleplay. And if you've ever done roleplay, you'll know what I mean here. When you get people who are into your circle, they are in your midst, but they're not actually enjoying roleplay, they start to grief. Sometimes they don't know they're doing it. Sometimes they really aren't aware, such in the case of D&D, when one of your friends just decides he wants to kill the innkeeper in front of everyone. And then the party has to now deal with the police and whatever. You know, it's like that kind of thing. It's like they probably don't realize it, but they are griefing still. And now we hark back to World of Warcraft. The etiquette rules that we learn while playing World of Warcraft. Number 1, God moding. God role-playing. Gold role-playing was one that I had to learn about quickly, mainly because I kept doing it when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was that God role-playing was a big issue. And it was basically where you get fucking people come up to you and they'd be like, I walk up to you and I stab you and you die, right? You don't get... If someone comes up and says that to you, your character has no say in what happened there. Your character has just been role-played on. You've basically just been told what to do. So what God role-playing, the way you're supposed to do it, you'd go up to them and you say, I walk up and I attempt to stab you in the neck. And then the other role player can either, can make a decision based on how well, how well they think their character would handle this situation. And most of the time they would resist it because roleplay's no fun if they just instantly die. But, that's how you don't ruin roleplay. Then there's things like the new life rule. When your character has died in game, you shouldn't return to the play. Oh my god, that's reminding me of Garry's mod. Oh no. RDM. Oh, I just thought I quacked it there. Oh my god, Garry's mod. I completely forgot about Garry's mod roleplay. Oh, I need to talk about Garry's mod roleplay. I used to be big on Garry's mod roleplay. To a big extent. I didn't like Dark RP. Dark RP was silly. I used to fuck around on Dark RP a lot, but I didn't actually do it. It was City RP, specifically Fearless RP. For anyone from Fearless watching this, give me the fucking taxi. No, give me the fucking bus. Give me the fucking bus. When I used to play, you couldn't get the bus. Because I wanted to be a bus driver on their server, right? And you can't get the bus unless you have a roleplay point, right? And you get roleplay points from admins giving them out, right? And you can only have them given out if you take part in a roleplay event. And I took part in a roleplay event and they didn't give me a fucking roleplay point. I just want to drive the bus. The reason they had the bus behind that, I understand, is because they don't want people getting in the buses and just running everyone over with a bus, So they put it behind a wall so that not everyone can do that. But I wanted the bus, man. But yeah, I used to do Fearless RP. I used to play it seriously. And to this day, the Fearless RP, the City RP map, I forgot what it's called, Evo City is ingrained in my memory. The one that Fearless RP used, not the crap one that I've seen on other servers, but the one that they use. I have these little stories I make in my head when I'm falling asleep. And the one I'm doing at the moment, I'm like a president's aide. And it's in Evo City, in fucking Fearless RP. But anyway, Gmod RP is fucking great, man. My main thing, I used to be very political. I was a political guy. I used to basically run for president all the time. And I used to like working my way up. I used to like to be the secretary. And I used to like working my way up and getting to, because it's all voice chat. So I used to like hanging out with the president and like getting to know the president on like a personal level. And when you get a president who's a really good role player, it's really fun to be like the secretary. You create like a bond. And then when the president dies and you step up, you're the vice president, you get promoted to president. It's like a crazy like moment. Like basically all of the like FBI and all the guards and stuff who've been working for the last president and who know you as the vice president now are like, oh shit, he's the president now. It's like it's such a really well designed idea and it's executed flawlessly, especially because it's like semi-serious, so you can have funny moments, but it's like you can't go on troll. Like you have to play roleplay, And there's food, there's hunger, so there's like a reason to go and get food. You have to like go and meet a chef and he'll cook you food. You can't just spawn in guns, you have to find a gun dealer and you have to like buy a gun off him. It's really well made, there's nothing better than it. I hope it's still thriving. Fearless RP, the server, on Garry's mod, if it's still thriving, mwah, brilliant, really well done. The admins were just great as well. I once played a carnival guy, like a carny, and I made like a slingshot ride out of like all the Garry's mod like utility stuff. And I got an admin to come over and tell me if they thought it was okay. And the admin was like, yeah, that's cool. I like it a lot. And he was like, yeah, you can do that. And I was like, Pog. And I screenshotted it. And then I made the fucking thing. And then another admin came over and said, you can't do this. And I sent him the screenshot of the other admin. And then out of the other admin saying I could. And so the admin that told me I couldn't do it anymore was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine then. It's breaking the rules, but you're allowed to do it. I don't know. It's just really good admins. Really good admins. But back to etiquette again. You got NLR, which comes up in Garry's mod roleplay a lot. And that's where if you die, like, in-game, you don't have to kill your character off, obviously. But you can't just walk back to where you died. You have to go and roleplay somewhere else now. Because otherwise it doesn't make sense from a roleplay perspective, Imagine you're the guy who killed someone's character, and you've roleplayed out this murder, and then the guy just comes back. It, like, ruins it. RDM is the other one from Garry's Mod, which everyone's probably heard, and that just means random death matching. That's just if you just shoot someone. You just get a gun and start killing people without it outside of roleplay, just for fun. That's, you know, that's the big one. You don't just go around killing people like that. I'm a big fan of Plexiate. He's a dark RP troller. He's quite funny. He basically just breaks all the etiquette rules, but like he skims around them in really funny ways. I don't know. I like him. I think he's cool. What other roleplay etiquette is there? There's a lot. There's a lot. I can't. I'm trying to think of them, but there's just so many that like there's like minging and stuff. There's just so many to go through that are just like so petty. Like there's a little rule for every single angle of roleplay when you're in like a big public setting. Which brings us to probably my final arc of this conversation, of this ramble. This really has been a ramble. I like this. If you like more of this, please let me know. Let me know that you've listened this far into my rambling and you've still enjoyed it. But I would say that the next and final part of my ramble, for sure, is private Minecraft roleplay. Specifically the Dream SMP I want to talk about. So, before I joined the Dream SMP, I had this running joke with Tommy that all the Dream SMP was just a path, which I nicknamed the Prime Path to Tommy. And I would tell Tommy, I don't know if the Prime Path, it was already called the Prime Path, but I remember calling it that. I may have been late to the punch though. And I remember Tommy would just, every time I'd watch his stream, he'd just walk up and down on this path constantly. And I just made the joke to Tommy that the server was fucking lame and that all he did was walk back and forth. And like him and Tubbo were the only people who actually played on the server. Dream never showed up. Like fucking George never showed up. So I was like, you're lit. And there was only like 8 people whitelisted. I think Ponk was on there as well sometimes. And it was like, I used to just say to, I'm purpled. I used to just say to Tommy like, what the fuck are you doing, man? It's like, it's just walking up and down on a path. And he was just like, well, what do you think we could do? And I was like, well, like, you've got that war thing. Why don't you just go like ham on that? Because the war thing was so clever. I was like, it's just roleplay, you know? He had this disc war and he had this whole thing with Dream. And I asked Tommy if he was planning it, and he was like, no, we're not really. Well, kind of, we're sort of planning it. But eventually I was like, can you get me on? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, cool, okay. So I basically wanted to run with the disc idea because I really loved that. So I came on with Schlatt, and then I left, and then I came back on again on my own this time, and I decided I was going to make a Breaking Bad style roleplay where me and Tommy would be drug dealers. And one thing led to another, and I'm the president of a nation losing it due to my own insolence, short-sighted naivete, disregard for my fellow citizen who I claim to love so much, and a dark, twisted understanding of what is possession and what is my right, you know. Yeah. And roleplay on Minecraft is so good. I can understand why so many people did it as kids. It's like it's so tactile and malleable. It's so understandable, yet so much room for imagination is available. And the big thing, I guess, with private Minecraft roleplay that you need is coordination. If you want to do Minecraft roleplay, because I understand, I was watching a thing on TikTok the other day actually, and it was talking about how every SMP at the moment, like just amongst friends, seems to devolve into political roleplay. And I really hope that's because of me. I really hope that's down, because that is such a fucking cool thing to be able to say that I inspired. I would love for people to be able to say, hey, our little Realms server we play on has become a political roleplay server because of the Dream SMP and watching Wilbur Surt. And that makes me really happy. So I hope that's the case, because roleplay is brilliant. But yeah, the thing you need is coordination, because otherwise you get storylines going off and stuff, and everything going off in different directions and angles, and you start losing track of who's doing what's this, what's that, you know. So I think it's very important that if you're going to have a roleplay server, which I highly recommend you do if you've got friends that are interested in it, make sure you go ahead and coordinate yourselves with what's going to happen. You know, you start writing up like ideas, especially if you're going to be putting it on, you know, the internet for people to watch. Start writing up the ideas, decide who's going to be like the guy who decides what's happening, you know, and things like that, a director almost. And then go about it. Dream SMP's brilliant. Dream SMP's amazing. The best thing the Dream SMP's ever, the best idea in roleplay the Dream SMP's ever had is the prison with Dream. Dream's prison idea is so brilliant, man. I look at that and I'm like, fuck, that's amazing. Like, it's just such a cool idea. It captures imagination perfectly. It's so accessible to everyone. Everyone can understand what's happening there. It's a giant building. There's a warden. There's loads of Minecraft-specific mechanics to get in and out of it. And it's actually legitimately inescapable. Like, if we use the roleplay rules we have, like, we're not allowed to do tier community or whatever. Like, if we use the roleplay-specific rules, it is impossible to escape this prison. And that's just really cool. That's just a really cool idea. And I really, really like it. It's so clever. It's really clever. Dream SMP's cool. Dream SMP's cool. I think it's amazing. The one thing I'd say about the Dream SMP though, and going forward into the future, is I understand now that the Dream SMP is going to be inspiring so many young people. It was Connor Eats Pants actually the one who told me this. The Dream SMP is going to be inspiring so many young people to get into writing and role playing and just creating things. If I do step back up with it, I want to make sure it's fucking brilliant. You know, I want to make sure it's the best thing I've ever done. Because I don't want to be polluting minds with just, like, stuff. Because a lot of the Dream SMP, especially really early on when it was just, like, the caravan and we were a drug empire, I just wrote the ideas on Notepad, like, 5 minutes before we went live, and then I just read them off a Notepad. Like, later on, I, like, wrote up documents and treatments and stuff, but, like, I want to make sure that it's, like, top quality if I step back up again, which I hopefully will. I just want to wait for some arcs to end first. But, like, yeah. I feel like my ramble's reaching an end. I don't know what much else to talk about. I'll have a conclusion now, yeah? You want a conclusion? We'll do a conclusion. Roleplay's brilliant. Roleplay's a really good way of exploring your confidence as a person in your ability to create on the fly. It's really good for your ability to open up your mind to new ideas and new situations. It's practice as well. It's practice and it's social experience, and it's not something you're born with. It's something you learn. An ability to improv, an ability to role play. And I have so many videos from when I was a teenager with my friends who were the people who ended up being in Soot House. And we all just made roleplay videos. We came up with situations on the fly and we filmed them and we edited them. And they were a lot of fun. And it was a really good time. And I'd recommend everyone gets into it. Everyone does it because it's not lame. Role-playing isn't lame. And if it is, who cares? If the people who think it's lame are missing out, they're the ones not having the fun. Enjoy what you want to enjoy and don't let anyone get in your way. Especially with roleplay. And make something that will make people inspired. That doesn't have to be with roleplay. I've reached the end of my tangent. I said I'd do these for an hour at a time. And this is the first episode, so 45 minutes is pretty good. But I'm going to leave you at that because there's not much else to say and I'm not going to waste your time. Thank you. Bye.